In a national poll, this man was described as having one of the 3 most iconic voices of the decades. You've heard him on everything from radio to TV, stadium events, cinema booking lines, award ceremonies, animation and gaming. I also happen to know that he's the voice of some trucks that collect your refuse and says vehicle reversing. He and I coached together back in the day, and he is the co-founder and director of Gravy for the Brain. I've known him for around 30 odd years. Of course, it's the legendary Peter Dickson.
Well, hello, Peter Dickson.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm actually better than I should be. Actually, I'm really well. Thank you very much for asking.
Better than you should be.
And
that
how
sounds
are you?
terrible.
Well, you
How
know,
am
well, both of us are getting on. We've been in this game a long time, and I just sometimes feel, I've probably time to step aside and let somebody else have a go. And then I think, no, I'm never going to step aside.
Never. They will have to prise the mic from my cold, dead
Your
hand.
dead cold fingers.
Breaking them. No way. I think as long as our voices sound great and we know what we're doing, we shouldn't be giving
our
this
voices may
opportunity.
sound great, but do we know what we're doing?
Of course we do. Now,
I mean,
we
I
should
think
do.
you say that though, don't you? Because the art of voiceover or voice acting, I think, changes all the time. It's
it does.
It's an inexorable sort of creeping forwards and changing its character. So you have to keep up with what
You do.
current trends are. So,
But we clearly have.
We all knew, and interestingly, some colleagues of ours who
I know.
refused to change or couldn't change or didn't see that they had to change, fell by the wayside a little.
But listen, we talked about longevity. I mean, I worked this out today, which is a really horrific thought, because I look so wonderful and young, as do you, my dear. I made my first commercial 39 years ago, which means that you made your commercial even longer than that, because you were voicing before I was voicing, weren't you?
I'm going to have to work that out. My first commercial I ever made was at Downtown Radio in Belfast.
Yes.
Where I'm from. Where I'm from, Tanya, as you well know.
I do know.
And so let me just work it out. So
Peter. If I ever want to do a Northern Irish accent, I just think of
just
Peter's
come to
lovely
me.
wife, Miss Barbara Dickson,
Barbara
not
Dickson,
the singer,
no.
Miss Babs, and then I just go, Peter. I can do it because that's how she speaks to him.
Right. So 1975.
So 49 years. And yet, amazingly, we're more or less the same age.
Work that out, if you will.
Yeah. So basically, when I was just in the music business, and actually, in 1975, I hadn't left school. I was nearly left school, and then I was obviously in the punk music industry and being a session singer. Peter was already an established voice. So when I first met you, do you remember where we first met?
Was it in Bristol?
I think it was at GWR.
GWR Bristol, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, with the wonderful Trish Jarman.
That's right, who I actually thanked. I made a little film about all the people that actually spurred me on to be the best I could. And Trish was one of those people because this is, I know, all joking aside, people often say a lot about the newer voices that don't have the training and things. They'd never have survived in our industry because it was so tough. Trish Jarman, and we love you, Trish, was one of the toughest producers ever. But
I remember going to, take 15.
Yes, I know. Losing the will to live.
And then you lose the will to live, and you lose all focus on the script, and then you go back to take 3 wasn't too bad. So
Yes.
let's go with that.
But didn't she give you? I don't know if you were going to share this with the podcast audience. Should we have one?
There's an audience for this, is there?
I hope so. Well, a listener or an audience. Didn't she give you an amazing nickname?
Oh, yes, she did. Yes.
I know what it is.
Yeah. No, what was something to do with parking, wasn't it?
It was Peter the Meter Dickson.
Peter the Meter Dickson. Yes. And the reason for that is because I went to GWR and we drove everywhere in those days. I parked outside or very close by the radio station, and this was a metered area, so I had to. The days we had parking meters. Do you remember those days?
Yes, I do.
I had to put coins into a meter, and I used to get there and think, well, usually it's probably about 10 scripts to do, and I would average so many scripts in a few minutes, and so I put in an hour into the meter. We'd be done in an hour, it'd be fine. So I put the money in the meter, walked in, and after the first hour, we'd only done about 3 scripts. Nothing that I was doing wrong, I don't think. It's just she was driving it so hard. So I went to, I said, I'm sorry, Trish, I'm going to have to go out and feed the meter.
Tuppence a bag. Yeah.
Peter the meter, yeah. That was
Yes, I remember her saying, and you go, we'd get desperate because we had these parking tickets, and we didn't want to have to pay parking tickets. We're there to make money, not lose money. And basically, there was all these parking meters behind the back of the watershed in Bristol. And I remember you getting up to write, say, Peter, and you could feel yourself as a voice actor, come on, I need to get on. And you also probably had another session to go somewhere else, probably Galaxy or somewhere like that. And saying, look, Trish, I've got to go and feed the meter. And she went, all right, Peter the meter, sit down. And he went, can you get someone to feed the meter? And you could feel your palms sweating like you're going to get a ticket. Yes. But you felt your palms sweating a lot at GWR. But my goodness, working with really tough directors, having to go, fine, take 25, great. And how? Yes, okay, but she
it
knew
taught
what she
you how
wanted.
to give. It taught you how to give alternative takes.
It certainly did.
And that's what a lot of people struggle with. They can't hear the differences.
No, they can't.
They'll read something perfectly well the first time, and the director will say, can you give me an alternative on that? And they've no idea how to do that or what it might sound like. So it's having the imagination and, of course, the practice to do it, to give you the ability and the skill to be able to do as many alternative takes as you can. Tom Hanks gave a lecture. He talked to the Oxford Union a few years ago. Look it up on YouTube. There's a wonderful moment where he stands up in front of the Oxford Union, who just loved him, by the way.
Yes.
And he said, one of the greatest skills any actor can have is to be able to give alternate takes to a director, whether you're a film actor, a stage actor, or indeed a voice actor. So he said he got them to do this little exercise where he said, I'm going to give you a phrase, and I want you all to try and think of the way you say it, then I want you to say it 5 different ways. And the phrase was, what can I do for you?
We could do this.
Yeah, so, you do. What can I do for you? Or what can I do for you? What can I do for you? What can I do for you? And any other variations you can think of. But the obvious variation is just is the stress emphasis on those different words, because they all mean different things.
And it's not
of
just
course,
the
the alternative you give, of course, has to match the context as well.
It does. And also, you can achieve that as well, not just by the stresses, but by the pauses, the words in between the words, the silent words. So
So there's another 5 takes, another 5 alternatives.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Yeah, so what can I do for you?
What can I do?
What can I do for you?
For you.
Yeah, exactly. See, there you go. There's a masterclass right there, actually, if you are listening to this. So, Peter, obviously, we learnt the old way, the hard way, the school of hard knocks. We had producers like Ed Harwood at Radio City. We had Trish. We had, some great, they were all great producers. Some were sweeter than others. Camp David at Hereward, brilliant, taught me a lot. I can never look at a Bratwurst in the same way again to this day. I'm saying nothing more.
We won't go into that.
We won't go into that. But there was we were circuit voices, Peter and I. So we literally were gobs on sticks. We got into our car on a Monday morning with our great big brick phones, and before that we had pagers and all that kind of stuff. And we drove around the country from north to south and whatever. And we bumped into each other along the way. And we did lots of campaigns together, Peter and I. I remember this because we'd always get the giggles. As you can probably tell, Peter and I get on extremely well, and we do always have a good laugh together, which is lovely. And we did a massive campaign for an Oxford bus company, and I can't remember what it was now, but I know there was many of these things. And when you say the same words again and again, sometimes it can make you start to get the giggles. And we were terrible. We were very good gigglers, but we were terrible.
Well, that's, of course, part of the reason why some of these sessions took so long. Because we were just laughing. I remember one session with John Atkinson down in Mercury, down in Surrey.
Yes, sorry, yeah.
And was it Sussex? Anyway.
Wasn't it Crawley, wasn't it?
Crawley,
yeah.
So he always used to make me laugh.
John.
It was just joyful, because part of it was also the pressure of getting it right, because in those days, and we are talking a lot about the old days.
But that's fine, because we are going to move it through, don't worry.
But the old days, of course, we had to. It was down to tape.
That's right.
Sound effects and music were played in live, so they recorded the ad as live.
Yes, I know.
So you'd start reading, the music would start, sound effects would drop into the appropriate points on carts. Remember them?
Yes, I do.
And so the whole ad had to be mixed, balanced, and recorded as live in one take.
Yeah, I know. And if you couldn't, I mean, this is what I want to talk to you. So, by the way, we are talking about the process of how we got from then to how we are now, and what makes Peter and myself, amongst some other people, the most experienced voice actors in this country who are still working, which is a very important factor. And there's a lot of reasons for this, but the training we had on the road was tough. And of course, Peter said everything was live. And we had to learn two things to tape. And one of the things we had to learn was to breathe through our arses, wasn't it, Peter?
Oh, yes. Yes. I still breathe out through my arse quite a lot as well.
Yes, I know, Barbara's told me.
I've cleared many a studio. They used to call me Peter the Emptier.
I thought they called him the Emperor.
No, the Emptier.
Oh, the Emptier.
I would empty many a booth and studio, yeah.
Well, at least there was a very famous colleague of ours at the time. I don't know if he's around now. If you are listening or you happen to see this, Greg Bantz. Greg Bantz was amazing because he insisted, and quite rightly so, on having all the lights off in the studio. And everybody, this rumour went around that he was actually a vampire, which he wasn't, by the way. But the studio always was cold. Oh, have you been in the studio after Greg Bantz? It's always cold. So you had that chance to build up these brilliant reports. But yeah, going back to breathing, we learned to breathe through our arse because if you couldn't breathe, what happened to you on a tape? What happened with the engineer or the producer?
Well, they'd have to edit all the breathing out.
Yes, and they didn't like it,
They
did they?
didn't thank you for it because that costs money. It's time, isn't it? So you have to learn how to control your breath. And when you think about it, breath, not only is it important for life in general, but it's also, fundamental to voice actors.
It is.
In fact, any actor who is using their voice, because breath is the engine that drives the vocal performance. And unless you've got good breath control, then you're not going to be able to give the performance that you'd like.
No, exactly. And I think the thing is, of course, one of the things when I am teaching voice is because of the modern technology that we now have, that, you can do it on your door and you just edit out everything very quickly. I get people who have been actually taught sometimes to go, do a line and then go, and of course, yeah, I know. And it's dreadful. And people are actually teaching this method, which I find extraordinary. But anyway,
what do they call that method?
Crap teaching. I don't know.
The gasping method.
But
this is it's bad. It's really bad because
it is.
Can you imagine using that method if you were recording something in long form, like an audiobook, for instance?
Correct.
You'd be days editing that together.
Yes, I know. I mean, I find it quite shocking when I've had that happen and I've been like, why are you doing that? Well, I've been told it doesn't matter because we can just take the breaths out very quickly. But it does matter because you need the breath control for the flow. You need to, I still think there is nothing more rewarding and able to show off with, to be quite honest, from going to the top of a script to the bottom in one take with beautiful breath control. Because the other things people tend to do is because they're not breathing properly, you get all this vocal fry. .co.uk.
Oh, yeah.
You can hear them like gasping at the end. And it's awful.
And of course, the opposite of that is people who, it also annoys me when I hear it, is someone who starts to read and 3 words into the sentence they're breathing, which tells me that they haven't breathed before they started.
No,
so
exactly.
They started the thing on an empty lung, and then they were going, well, today I went, and they're breathing right away. So the key is to take that initial big deep breath, and then
now you just breath through your nose, breathe breath. But I always say if you want to do like a cleansing out and everything.
That's what I mean. I would never breathe through my nose.
No, gosh, people are nose breathers on radio or anything. It's really bizarre.
This is a dreadful thing to get rid of. So, so I also teach through Gravy for the Brain when we have students in front of us, a technique I like to use on long form, which is called micro breath, where you are breathing at every possible opportunity in small amounts through your mouth silently.
Yes, I teach that too. But I call it something different.
Breathing very silently now, and you can't hear that at all.
No, I know. I teach exactly the same thing, but I call it a pop breath, and then I call it a FOPO, which is a fake breath. And yes, for every 1 breath you do, you should be able to do 4 FOPOs or 4 fake breaths. And the thing is, I often get it with male students more than female students, that there's some kind of manly code. I don't need to breathe. I'm a man. I don't know what that And I go, nobody gets a cut
true.
for not breathing, you know. But nobody gets a cut for not breathing, do they? Nobody gets, oh, well done. You went purple in the face, but hey, we got there in the end. You know, nobody cares about things like that.
And also, I think that some people get so fixated on breath that they lose all sense of what they're saying. Yes. They're worrying about when they're going to breathe. And when you think about it, I'm not thinking about when I'm going to breathe now because it's a natural thing.
Yeah.
We're reading other people's words, but if it's beautifully written prose or the script is good, then it'll be written in such a way that gives you the opportunity to breathe in the right places. Of course, not all scripts are beautifully written, but but I think you have to bear in mind, I mean, a lot of them aren't very well written.
A lot of them have no punctuation or very bad.
Yeah, I don't mind that so much. Well, I think,
well, we can make our own punctuation.
Yeah, you make your own
can't
punctuation.
we? With breath, actually.
Yes,
you make the punctuation
exactly.
with your breath, really.
So don't get so fixated on breath, but do know that you do have to do it and know how to do it silently.
Yes, exactly. Silent breathing.
And at the same time, you know, I don't mind a little bit of breath in long form. In an audiobook, it's fine to hear the breath.
Yeah.
In commercials, of course, you're not allowed to. Well, you do breathe, but they remove all the breath.
Yeah.
Sometimes to a ridiculous extent.
Yes, over-editing breath.
Over-edited, yeah, that sounds just as bad.
Yeah.
So there's a sort of balance to be had there.
I don't like this completely silencing things as well. I don't mind a little bit of natural breath, you know, fade in, fade out, and then you get that slightly natural pause, which you can always tighten up if you need to. But especially as you say in long form in audiobooks, people breathe, and also you need to have those. I think Stefan calls them emotes. That kind of, you know, you can sigh in a long form if you're doing a character.
Yeah.
You can. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, for example. That sounds fine. But what doesn't sound fine is, I don't know what I'm going to do.
And for goodness
you're
sake,
dying, of course, in your piece.
Yeah, do not use a noise gate.
No.
I've heard that a lot. And that
yes,
is,
awful.
Particularly in long form, if you're listening to an audiobook and you hear the room tone disappear, you think, oh, God, where's the person gone?
And it takes you out of the story.
It breaks the mould.
So Peter and I obviously not only are experienced voice actors, but we are that rare combination of super experienced working voiceover. And I have to make that very clear.
We're still working, yes, we are still working, everybody. We're
God,
still working.
I said to somebody the other day, I'm like Boxer in Animal Farm. Boxer the horse that just dies on the job. Actually, what a great to go, really.
No,
a bit like dying on the floor of Studio 54, only in a booth, and nobody would know you had died for ages. Anyway, enough about that. But we're also experienced coaches, voiceover coaches, that is. And before we did, Peter did Grave for the Brain, before Richcraft was born, I did start teaching in 91 with Greg Marsden, actually. We used to do show reels and things on a Saturday. But then Peter and I we've always done bits and bobs together, things like that. And then we decided to have a company called Ultra Voice, didn't we?
Ultra Voice, not Ultravox, which was a different thing altogether.
It was, yes.
But Ultra Voice.
Yeah.
I'd never taught before. You've probably been teaching a lot longer than I have. In fact, I know you have. But I thought after I'd been doing this for 30-something years, you know, it might not be a bad idea to pass on stuff that I've learned to people.
Yeah.
You know, it's a nice thing to do. How would we do this? You came along and we got together and we started doing it. And I had to, you've probably been through this process as well yourself, but I then had to think very carefully about how I actually do things, how I perform. Because if you've done it for 30-something years, you begin to do it automatically. Like driving a car, you don't think about it very much. So how was I going to pass on my techniques? I had to really deconstruct what I did and think very carefully about that, and that wasn't easy because you get used to doing things in your way. And how do I do that? What did I just do there to make that happen? And then you deconstruct it in little sort of stages, and you try and build that back up again and show people what you've just done.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I did. And that's why the techniques that I used to teach are so precious to me and personal, and you all have your own personal techniques, and you guard them quite closely. Because the thing is, there is those, people say, oh, those that can't teach. Well, we are here to prove to you that that's not true. We can and we do. So there you are. But teaching, I don't know, what do you think about it? Do you think in order to teach something well, you not only have to understand the subject, obviously if you're a history teacher you have to understand history, but it does help to be able to do it really well yourself in order to teach it, doesn't it? Don't you
absolutely,
think so?
Yes. Why would you learn from someone that couldn't do it?
Yeah.
There are all kinds of teachers, of course. There are some teachers I know who aren't working voice actors, but they teach. They're good listeners, so they can tell you what you're doing, what you should be doing, and what you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
There's one particular teacher I know of in America called Maurice Tobias, who's called the voice whisperer. Now, she's very unusual.
Yeah.
She was very, very friendly with Marlon Brando and a lot of the Hollywood A-listers. She was a great friend of Don LaFontaine's. And she has never been a voice actor. She's been a director in theatre and is now a voice director in all kinds of different things, including games. But she is probably unique in that sense that she's never done it herself. But she can hear and communicate to you what you're doing wrong or what you're doing right and how to improve. And so that's an interesting take from someone who is a director sitting on the other side of the glass, which is, after all, what we do, who we perform to when we're working.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, that's great. And if you can do that, being able to hear what needs to be changed and tell them what to do. But then you've got to have a technique to teach them. And this is where it gets a little bit of a grey area, because you and I both teach techniques that hopefully will stay with our students in their voiceover toolbox in their brain forever. Because at the end of the day, when they're on their own with 4 directors, either in their headphones or in a studio, all giving them different things, they've got to be able to cope. And we are not going to be there in their pocket telling them how to do things. And one of the things is, I don't know what you think, telling somebody how to say something. I could get somebody out in the street now and say, copy me, new carpet, Bev, and they could probably do it, right? But that's not a voice actor. That's a parrot.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? So you've got to have those, you need to have those skills inside you. So you need to build those skills. They don't happen overnight. People think being a voiceover is just talking, reading, it's easy. And, I'm very strict with my students. They've got to know what they're doing, because I don't want to set them loose on the world. Because once you make a mistake, if you don't get it right, as I say to them, it's okay to be nervous because you don't know, it's a new situation, but not because you don't know what you're doing, because there's nothing worse than having your confidence not. And even today, it's a tough industry, isn't it, Peter? And people talk.
Even more so,
Yeah.
I think.
I think so too.
Even more competition, although I don't like to think of it as competition. There are more voices out there. You're only competing with yourself when you think about it. People find that concept hard to understand, but we all sound different. And even though you may not be cast for a particular role, it doesn't mean to say you're not good. It just means to say that whatever was inside the director's head or the hirer's head didn't match what you did. And so very often we don't get cast. I mean, I can count on more than 2 hands. In fact, it would take a lot of hands to count up the number of times I've not been selected to do something. But you have to develop that sort of thick skin and realise that it's not because you're crap. It's just because you didn't fit the bill. And or you didn't read the brief. Or maybe you're just crap.
I think one of the problems, there's 2 things there.
They never tell you. They never tell you why.
No. I mean, it's very interesting you say that, because on the one hand, I remember auditioning for something once, and they wanted kind of, my kind of tone, slightly Midlands, blah, blah, whatever it was, for an ad. And then I heard the finished ad on TV, and it was a young guy with a London accent in his 20s. I'm like, well, okay, I was never going to get that. I'm not that good. But the other thing is, having this thick skin is very important. My agent, he put me up for something recently, and I didn't get it. Okay, moving on. That's not my first rodeo. And he said, "Oh, thanks for being so good about it." And I said, "What?" I was shocked. I was what do you mean? Why wouldn't I be shocked? Why would I not be? He said, "Oh, some of the newer voices, I have to practically talk them down." He said they get so upset because they've not been cast. So, blimey, well, they better get used to it, because this is not the industry for you to be some kind of, you can't be like that. You just have to go, okay, put it in the F-it bucket, and that's it.
I don't participate in pay to play.
No, I don't either.
But I know people that do, and I've been told that the hit rate, if you want to call it that, on pay to play, and some of those bigger sites, is 1 in 100.
Yeah.
So you'll do 99 auditions, and you'll get 1 booking.
Yeah.
And that is pretty brutal.
I think so. I think it is brutal. Also, those pay-to-plays, I'm not on them anymore at all. I've hardly ever really gone through them, because, as you say, the hit rate is down the list, because they're not looking at, actually, I should just listen to audition number 45 because, she's really experienced. They're not going to do that. And and I know this sounds probably, well, I don't know what it sounds like, but if I'm voicing and doing stuff all day, I haven't got time to be auditioning. And it might be, unless I get something from my agent, which is a specific audition, when or a client that I already work for, they take priority. If I was on a pay-to-play, it'd be like the end of the day, I think, oh, let's just see what's on X site. Oh, I could do that. I'll do an audition. Now, I could be the last one in the queue. It doesn't really matter. But what made me stop going on the pay-to-plays, this is going off topic slightly, is because of the rates that they're putting out there, which are a joke.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I thought, nah.
You're basically working for nothing.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, it's the same in America. Auditions all day long. And hardly any bookings.
But no working voice could do that. No working voice is doing that.
Well, a lot of them do, and I don't know how they do it, but they do it.
But how can they be working?
The only thing I can say in its favour is, and it's quite a good point, this actually, is that if you audition regularly, you are doing two things. One is you're practicing as you're doing it.
Yes.
Auditioning is, some people say auditioning is the work. That's what the work is.
Okay.
So you're practicing, you're seeing, but you're also seeing current scripts that are being generated and put out there.
Yeah.
So you're keeping abreast of what's current and you're in the mix, as it were.
Yeah.
And number three is, of course, you may eventually at some point hit pay dirt and get hired.
Yeah.
But I think for people starting out, pay to play is not a bad place to be.
For people starting out, yes.
Because you're seeing what's going on, you're seeing what people are looking for. Don't go there for the money, because
be prepared to be ripped off.
Unless you're doing a lot. There are certain ways of playing that game, of course. When you get those clients eventually, is you take them off platform and then you start nurturing those clients for yourself.
Which, of course, you're told not to do if you are a member of a pay-to-play site.
Well, of course, that's not in their interest for you to do that. But it's up to you. Unless you've signed a contract saying you won't do it.
Then don't do it.
Then you should be able to do it.
Then don't do it and then leave the site. But if you want to do that. I think the thing is, I mean, what I meant when I said working voiceovers they can't be auditioning all day. If I am voicing, if I start my day, we're doing this today, but once I finish with you, I've got a corporate to make. I've got something else to do. Then I'm doing something else. There's always something happening, and or admin or whatever I'm doing, or meetings with various people and stuff like that. But if you're making it is what you said is correct. It's great practice for a new voice or a less experienced voice. You do see the different trends, but can I just say that I'm not seeing, very rarely do I ever see on anything scripts that I've never seen 100 times before. The only thing that's changed really, I think, is maybe some of the styles of voices they're using, and there's and that kind of more natural sound, which is, for anybody experienced, they should be able to do that anyway. But no, I just think if you're auditioning all day, you cannot have jobs. And you don't need I don't need the practice. I'm working. That's my practice.
No, you don't. No, absolutely. No, you've got enough work to sustain you, and so that's good. And for those of us who are in that fortunate position, that's great. As you say, the only auditions I do now are from mainly from my US agents. My LA or New York agent sends me lots of auditions, and I don't mind doing those, because auditions, although you may not get the work, those auditions, if you're selected and shortlisted, go to the casting agents at Disney, Pixar, or wherever, and so you're getting in front of some pretty good people. And whereas you may not be right for that particular role, they may say, oh, that voice is that might do that. He might be great for that, or she might be good for that. I'm going to put that one on the side. They haven't been picked this time, but at least you are getting in front of the people that you need to get in front of without any real effort on your part.
Yeah, I mean, that happens to me. I'm always more grateful it's my New York agent that sends me something, because obviously the time difference. Because normally with LA, I'm just about to close down for the day, and ping, what's this? Oh, okay, let's just turn everything back on. But
I know, it's awful. That,
you just do it, And I think that's the thing. I mean, those are the kind of auditions I would go for first, or as I say, or if it's a client. But yes, I mean, but I do think if you're starting out, I always say to my students, if you want to go on the paper, go on there, because and they will, and many of them. I mean, one of the nice things, and I'm sure you must see it with some of the people that you've got taught, particularly on a one-to-one basis in Gravy, that you they're working all the time. Like, my voices are working, and that is testament itself into training, and also the fact that they're putting the work in themselves. People, it's not going to just fall into your lap. Nobody just comes to you.
No.
I've heard you've just spent a year learning to voice with Tanya Rich. Now, here you are. Here's a great contract with Philips or whatever.
Not going to happen.
No.
I remember when I first started out as a freelancer after I'd left the BBC, I thought, well, here we are. I've got all my eggs in one basket. It was great. I've got a website. I've got an agent. I've got got my business cards, as you did then. And so I sat back. And I thought, well, I'll wait for the phone to ring. I get up in the morning. By 11 o'clock, the phone hadn't rung, and I used to go over to the phone and check it was still working.
I did that too.
Then I went through a phase of ringing my agent to ask them, is there anything going on? And eventually she said, "Will you stop ringing me? I'm busy." So I then realised pretty soon that that I was not going to be able to sit back and do nothing. That I had to be a lot more proactive. And in fact, voiceover it's a difficult job because you are a solopreneur. You are your own business. You do everything within that business, from doing the actual work, seeking out the work, marketing yourself. You mentioned admin earlier. There's a lot
Yes.
of admin. Chasing the money,
Yeah.
raising the invoices, and nurturing new clients. So there's a lot going on there. You really are a one-man business, and you're the head of every single department within it.
Yes, you are CEO of everything. I remember when we used to go around the stations, we'd have like the voiceover toolkit of the day. So you'd have your mobile or your pager. You'd always, because it was very expensive in the olden days to use phones. So you'd be in a studio, and when you'd finished, you'd say, "Oh, can I just check my answering machine?" And often there would be work for you in the area, and then you go to another production company. So that was one thing. Pencils. You'd
Yes.
always have your water, but they often provided it. But the thing is, you literally, one of the things that was what you would do is you would walk in and you didn't know what you were going to get. None of this sending scripts in advance business. You just walked in, pile of script, go. Solo stuff. And you had to be everything. I mean, the greatest training in the world, to be honest. You had
Really
to be
was.
the dad, the mum, the baby, the screaming next door neighbour, whatever. And it really, you had a lot of freedom with those voices, but you had to do it very quickly. And I think that's why, because for us, time was money. If I spend too long at this radio station, I can't get to make the corporate I'm going to make down the road, and then I can't go to the next station. But one of the things I remember is carrying the invoice book with the blue paper in, and then having to write down all the names of the scripts you did, and it was just, there was a lot, but it was fun times, and I think much more fun in a way now than working in our little booths. Don't you think so? Because
I think so.
Social aspect.
It's a lot less stressful. It's a lot. The work-life balance is so much better, because I remember. Again, we're talking about the old days, but it's quite interesting to compare the two. I was working on a radio station in London. I did the breakfast show for about a year.
Which station was that, Peter?
Melody Radio.
Oh, Melody,
it's now
yes,
called
of course.
Smooth.
Yeah.
And I remember doing the breakfast show. I was on air at 6 a.m., so I had to be in the station at 5 in the morning. Then I worked till 10, do the breakfast show till 10 a.m., and then they'd often want a meeting with me after that, which I very rarely acceded to because I was so tired. And I knew what was coming up ahead of me in the day. And I'd get in the car and I'd drive to Bristol or Newcastle, Nottingham, Manchester, wherever I had to be, Essex, all the main sort of production hubs. And I'd work there till, 4 in the afternoon, drive home, get home at 6, have my dinner at 7 and be in bed to be up at 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
And that was relentless, and it was really, really, really tiring. And so I often felt, and no wonder I felt, tired at the weekend.
Yeah. I mean, it was exhausting. And I suppose the comparison to nowadays would be, imagine you've got a part in a game, a big game where you're playing lots of characters, and you're having to do a lot of projection, and you're in a studio in a voice booth for like 4, 5, 6 hours, working your socks off, and you come out feeling drained. Well, it was like that really every day for us. Only we weren't, we were just literally going from place to place, and you'd leave for a week sometimes. I mean, if I didn't have a breakfast show to do, because I was offered one. Did you know I was offered to be the first female presenter on Signal Radio? And they auditioned me. I said, I don't want to do this, because in those days you had to press all the buttons yourself. And I now know that what I always had, I know now, I have dyspraxia, which I didn't realise. And nobody talked about that when we were young. But I could talk, I could do the breakfast show, that wouldn't have been a problem. But having to do everything this time and push in the carts and press the buttons and all that, I knew I would just end up swearing on air and get the station shut down. And so I I turned
Surely
it
not
down.
you,
Yeah, I know, Mrs. Sweary. But that's why I turned it down. And I often wonder how different my life might have been had I taken on that and because other presenters from Signal of the Day went on to do bigger and greater things, Radio 1 and everything. Who knows? I'll never know. That's a parallel universe. So, but that was why, of course, nowadays they have producers, don't they? They have people to push the buttons for them and everything now. So if you want to give me a radio show now, feel free. So,
put it out there, why don't you?
Well, why not? This is my moment in the spotlight.
Yes.
So, one of the things that I was going to say is, obviously, yes, we have talked about the old days because, of course, you need to know where somebody's been to know where they are at now. And so, why are we, Peter and I, as tough as old boots in this industry and old pros? A couple of old pros, really, love, aren't we? Because of the training we had.
Speak for yourself.
But
I've been called an old pro for a long time.
Well, I know, but enough to get me everywhere. Nowadays it is different. The home setup, the sitting in the studio. It's quite a lonely business, I think. And I know there's a lot of online communities, and that again can raise problems for young voices or new. When I say young voices, by the way, I don't mean young in age. I mean young in experience. Because often the information they're given is quite indicative of what it's really like out there. It's not all, and I know this sounds harsh, people, but it's not all kumbaya.
No, that's a long time since I've heard that phrase.
But Peter, I'll bring you back.
Kumbaya, my friend.
Kumbaya.
Yes.
Oh, Peter, kumbaya.
Were you in the Girl Guides? Or
No, I was a brownie for 2 weeks. I got thrown out.
2 weeks. For swearing? Or
No, I think a girl got a bit feisty with me and I got very feisty back, and it was I was literally drummed out of the brownies. The pixies were no more. I had to give back my woggle or whatever the hell it was.
Oh, how awful.
I
traumatic
know.
for you.
It was,
and for the other girl as well.
Well,
Traumatic.
yes, but then brown and yellow, not really me, are they?
It's not.
No.
Awful colour scheme.
We're awful colour scheme.
We've gone off piece.
Yes. So we've seen. Do you know? Can I just say I did make my daughter Araminta, who's 27 tomorrow. Can you believe that? Because Peter and I have a child very similar age, and basically. I once suddenly said, "Oh, I wonder if they could mash that up with a Welsh. I can't do a Welsh accent, by the way. A sheep farmer going, come by, yeah."
Like it. Let's do it. It'll be a hit.
Yeah, it would be a hit. Whistle. I can't whistle either.
Neither can I. Yeah.
No, I'm rubbish at whistling.
Yeah.
Do you remember that guy used to be on the telly that you do all the bird songs?
Yeah.
That was the entertainment we had to listen to as children. Think yourself lucky.
That's right. Yes, that was what passed for entertainment in the 70s.
Yes, it was. Amongst the many
man
other
whistling
things.
on TV,
Whistling, and here comes the sparrow.
or a man in an Irish Aran cardigan sitting on a rocking chair.
What do you mean, old Val?
Val Doonican. Yeah.
My dad was great friends with him. He often, he was a nice man, Val. I even sat in that rocking chair.
Thought you were going to say you sat on his lap, but
no, I sat on Engelbert Humperdinck's lap.
Did you
Yes, I
really?
did. Yes.
Well, we won't ask.
We won't ask about that. No, but I was very young at the time.
That's even worse.
Anyway, moving this strictly back. So, advice to newer voices. I mean, obviously, you are like El Presidente. You and Hugh are like the kings of Grade for the Brain, the most successful online training course
in the world.
And I do, yes, I do recommend people do. I think it's a great resource. I think there's a really nice structure in it. And of course, I know Peter, and and anyone that knows me thinks I would do a training company with anybody, they don't know me at all, because Peter knows what he's talking about. And there you go. Pay me later.
Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Advert, gravyforthebrain.com.
But, people do get some stupid advice given to them. And I hear about people who are being coached, being told line by line how to do everything. Peter, would you agree that is not coaching?
I think it's not the way to do it. No, I think be careful who you learn from,
yes.
is all I would say. And as we said at the very beginning, do your research.
Yeah.
Find out who you're contemplating being taught by. What have they done? What do other people say about them? Just do your due diligence. And, if you go into, if you look at what Richcraft does, and if you look what Gravy for the Brain does, and you read the reviews, and you listen to former students or current people who are learning with either of those two organisations, and you will see that there is a 99% satisfaction rating, as we have on Google. And so...
Well,
I
we
think
often
it's,
cross over into each other because I know Hugh recommends me, I know you recommend me, and I recommend you guys. So it's, and it's not just because I'm friends with Peter, by the way, because one of the things that I never had a problem with, and a lot of people think I'm terrible for this, is if you're nice and you're good, great. If you're not very nice, but you're good, I will still potentially suggest you for a job. I will still work with you. It doesn't actually matter. You don't have to be nice to be good. Okay? Some of the snappiest voice actors I've ever worked with are fantastic. But there's a bonus if you're friends with somebody and they're good. But I would never recommend somebody just because I'm friends with them. I just wouldn't. But people do. Oh, well, they're so nice because they never correct you. Or that's not the way to learn, and you should never. I know it's not nepotism, but that kind of thing. When he's my mate, so I'm going to give him that job. If Peter's the best man for the job, or if I was the best woman for the job, we'd recommend each other. But we're not going to do it just because we're friends.
No, exactly right. Always recommend the person you think is right for the job.
Yeah.
And on the question of being nice, I think if you are working, when you do get booked and you're going into a studio, or if you're just online on Zoom or whatever it is, you're working in your own studio, I think it is important to be nice. It's important to do several things. One is turn up on time. I think also to young people, half the battle is showing up, being there on time and ready.
Yes.
And when I say ready, I mean if you're recording yourself, make sure that your levels are set, that your DAW is working, that your Zoom is set up properly, that you are comfortable and that you're hydrated and you have some water in the booth with you. I always have my water in the booth with me. And so we are ready to go. And you do that at least half an hour before the session. And 10 minutes before the session, you sit down and you're comfortable. You adjust the temperature in the room if you need to. You blow your nose. You make sure that you've done your warm-ups on your vocal warm-up and your breathing is okay. You've exercised that. So I think you're ready to go and be ready to go on time.
Yes.
And then when you do go online or you go into the studio, you're very nothing's a problem.
Exactly.
If they say, "How's your journey here today?" And if you have had the most awful journey. And I frequently do have very bad journeys into studios. I always say, brilliant, absolutely fine, excellent, no problem at all.
Yeah.
Because what they don't want is another problem. They've got enough problems, and if you're going to burden them with your bad journey into work, or the fact that your dog died last week, or your football team lost the match last night, nobody gives a damn. And so you just have to be super professional, very, very easy to work with, and deliver the goods, and then most importantly, once they've said, yes, that's lovely, thank you very much, Peter, then don't hang around, bugger off.
Exactly. And thank you, Peter, for what you've just said is everything. I 100% back Peter. I teach my students, everything is always fine. Nobody cares. I've got a sign in my office, so you can't see it from here. It says, nobody cares, work harder. And I know that sounds very hard, but at the end of the day, the answer has to be fine because they're not interested. It's a polite thing to say, hi, how are you? Great. Just what Peter said. And then go away. Don't hang around. If you want a copy of something that you've done, don't do it on the session. Get in touch later. Say, that ad I did, if the client's comfortable with it, may I have a copy for this? Don't say, oh, can I have the copy? Can I say, don't do it. You can, if you're in a Soho studio, do a very quick grab into the jar of biscuits. That's fine, and then be on your merry way. We've all done that. We've lived on Twix. Other chocolate brands are available, and but
you can't beat a Twix.
You can't beat a Twix, especially after a voice session.
No, after a session, no.
Never before. But yeah, Peter's right. Always fine. We always have to be. And I say to students, your booth should be your happy space. If you are in such a state, bear this in mind. If you are in such a state, you feel, I get people, I've got a bit of this, I can't do the lesson. That's fine. That's fine. But bear in mind, if this was a session and you let them down at the last minute, unless you are really dying or really ill or something terrible, like a real calamity's happened, go and do the job. You've got to do it because that's how you pay your bills. And that's the thing. Peter, you're a delight as always. I'm so glad that we've been friends all these years. And,
same here.
And that we work together still and we're still working. And yeah, thank you so much for talking to me today. And that's goodbye from me, and it's
goodbye from me. That'll be £5.